Well, hello. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Artemis, and today I am going to be starting on another long-term cosplay build. So I actually got invited to join my first group cosplay. So there's going to be a bunch of us recreating Moth bug pieces from Hannah Alexander, and I ended up picking the Lichen Moth. Don't know if I'm saying that right. So I've given myself about a month and a half to work on this, which hopefully should be enough time. We will see. The first step that I did was actually drew out the design. The artwork itself kind of hides what the front looks like, so I needed to draw that out and get an idea of what I wanted to do. So the first thing that I think I'm going to create is just a base bodysuit, and that'll act as the anchor point for everything. And then ultimately what I needed to decide on was how the bottom would look, because that is the part that is most hidden. I personally did not just want to do a bodysuit and nothing else. I wanted to add a little something to the bottom. And I took a look at a lot of the other artwork that Hannah Alexander did. And it seems like there's this kind of segmented skirt design that she uses a lot as well. So I'm going to go ahead and include that in my design. Again, it's not visible from the front, so I am taking some creative liberty here, but hopefully inspired from her other artwork as well. I've got some puff sleeves that I need to add, as well as this beautiful embroidered fabric. I've also gone ahead and I've ordered a wig, as well as some mini scleras. So this will be my first time wearing contacts as well, so should be exciting. I did order those in advance because I knew they were going to take a while as well. Same for the wig. See, I didn't fully procrastinate.
Are you sure about that?
Stop making noise. But the first step is to go ahead and make that base bodysuit. Now I have made a bodysuit in the past before. I did for my Raven cosplay. I ended up using a pattern and kind of piecing things together because ultimately that pattern had 4 different segments in the front and I wanted a much more seamline look. However, that bodysuit did not come out the best, so I don't want to use that again. So what I'm going to do is use the saran wrap and duct tape method, try to self-draft a pattern on myself, and see how it goes. So let's get started with that. That's fine. I don't think this was worth it. Improvise, adapt, overcome. Okay, so last I left off, I had completed the duct tape pattern and traced it and cut it out. I was working on transferring it to flat paper to create a pattern. Originally in my head, I was like, oh, I'm going to use stretch fabric. It doesn't matter if the pattern itself is flat, it'll work. However, I did not account for the duct tape not being able to get flat. So I was able to get an approximate front pattern. However, I could not get the back of my duct tape form to get flat enough to try to transfer it to paper with any modicum of success. So we improvise, adapt, and overcome here. And I figured that if the duct tape didn't want to lay flat, then I wouldn't make it flat. Oh my god. So I've gone ahead and I have taped it up back together, stuffed it with some of my fabric scraps to try and just create a dress form. Alright, so the next steps for this is I need to block off the armhole using some saran wrap to protect the fabric, then go ahead and put tape on it. And then I'm just going to try to drape the stretch fabric directly onto this and see if I can do some pattern draping instead. So let's see how it goes. Oh heck. At this point, I was about ready to draw the seam lines on the pattern so I could cut it out. However, I realized that I had no way to track where they would actually meet. Like, the dress form had no indicators, so I would have just been blindly drawing the front and the back. So I took this time to create some seam lines out of duct tape, put them on the dress form, after taking everything I had draped off, and then re-draped it in order to be able to cut it. Whoa! Incredible angle. Okay. Okay, so where I left off was I have the bodysuit, and I was struggling to figure out how the bottom was going to work. So I went ahead and just drafted up and created a pair of boy shorts to wear. And now I am going to take the boy short pattern and merge it onto the bodysuit. It looks like I have just enough fabric to be able to use what's on the bodysuit without having to add anything to it. But yeah, hopefully I'll have a full bodysuit with shorts built in. I don't know what else to say. Let's go. Oh, before I sew it, I do also want to take this off once it is cut with the boy shorts and save the pattern. I think it'll be useful pattern. I'm also going to go ahead and trim up these edges to make it look a little nicer too. Can you see me? Cutting into a project you have worked hard on is terrifying. So this... Hello! Editing Artemis here. Hats off to Past Me for that transition, because at that point I just stopped recording anything that had to do with the bodysuit. So I finished the main bodysuit. I didn't finish the snap to the bottom or the shorts. I cut the pattern, and then I figured I would deal with that later. I was perpetually being haunted by a fabric I had seen at Joann's. It's this beautiful off-white, soft, fluffy fabric, and it literally sat in my mind for weeks before I was like, okay, I need to go buy a bunch of this fabric and make the bodysuit out of that. It's this beautiful kind of off-white cream color, and I was kind of worried because I was thinking it was going to be really hard to fabric match, but even in the store, just comparing it to white fabric, half the time it looked exactly the same, half the time it didn't. So I took a chance and I went with it, and I loved it. It's beautiful, and I think it works perfectly for the costume. So after spending so many hours trying to make the bodysuit, I made it again. So I used my original bodysuit as a lining layer and put this on top, and then honestly forgot about the bodysuit for weeks. At this point, I had procrastinated a bit, and most of what I was doing now was in the last couple days leading up to Magfest and the meetup. So ultimately, finishing up the bodysuit ended up being one of the last things I did, and I was still struggling to get the shorts area right. I couldn't get the snaps right, so I just gave up and I turned it into a mini dress. I had just enough fabric to be able to turn it into a mini dress and hem it, so that is what I did. So yeah, next time I need a bodysuit, I'm getting a pattern, and I'm not altering it. On our lighter note, here is my dog with one brain cell suffocating himself. So for the sleeves, I used Simplicity pattern 8719. I cut it out and then actually added about 5 or 6 inches on either side in order to make it even poofier. I used 2 layers of tulle as a base and then a layer of this white gauze on top, and then I had to baste it by hand so I could make the puff. had to get creative for the lower part of the sleeves because I wanted it all to be one piece, and there were a couple inches of fabric at the top that connected to the poof, but that didn't drape like the rest of the sleeve. So I created this design, which allowed me to get the effect I needed, and I just had to work with this fabric, which was a nightmare, but I got it done. At one point, I had decided to try to make my own pom-poms. However, that was not going well, and I very quickly replaced it. I found some of these at Michael's, and they worked for what I needed perfectly. I did end up using these other pom-poms later in the project, though. It's soup time! This one is nylon. It is going to take the dye instantly, so I'm going to put it in there for seconds. That's good soup. When the tights finally dried, I didn't really like how they looked. The gradient wasn't that great, so I actually went ahead and just used a little bit of black dye and tried to dye them again. And I think it came out much better. Still not perfect, but much better. Alright, I have no idea what I did, but I did something wrong. There's not anything matching up here. Yeah. I don't know what happened. Just gonna keep going and see what happens. It was at this moment that I knew that I messed up. I ended up just completely scrapping this to make a smaller version that would have more of the pronounced point that the reference image had as well. Okay, genuinely, I have no idea what's happening. Each time I try this, it is too long on either side. I did the same thing with the first one. It still ended up working. I just tucked all this excess in, kind of used it as seam allowance. So that's what I'm just going to do here, but this time with a much better shape. Hopefully that point is more pronounced. Yeah, let's try it again. It is done. It took me way too long, only because I procrastinated. I think I watched almost the entire first 4 seasons of What We Do in the Shadows on the last 4 days trying to get this done. But it is done. I am pretty happy with how it turned out. There are definitely things that I want to change. You know, this was my first time making wings, and I think they actually came out pretty good. I wish I had had more time to actually be able to spread them out and find a way to make them stay more spread out instead of just having them fall down my back. But I am excited to now have that skill under my belt and so much extra wire, so expect some more wings on my channel in the future. I have no idea what happened with the puff or what I was thinking. I assumed that if I had the same pattern front and back, except one just bigger, it would match. It didn't match. I did zero research into this, so it was just like blind audacity that it would work, and it didn't. Ultimately, it did work out in the end, though. I do think I am disappointed with the fabric I chose. I ended up choosing the puff stuff because it was on sale for like a couple dollars for a yard, and had I not messed up the first time, I would have had enough fabric with just like the $3 I spent on it. But I didn't have enough fabric to remake it, so I had to go to the store and buy more of it anyway. I definitely think if I were going to redo it, I would use true fur instead of what I ended up picking. Also, RIP Joanns, I am not emotionally ready for that. All the last minute craft trips. I definitely wish I had had more time to add more wire to the bow itself. I think it could have been really cute had I been able to pose it more so it was sitting up. I thought I had enough wire in there just on one side. I definitely would have needed it in both sides and maybe even through the center to make sure it actually stayed up as well. Oh no. Oh, ah! I got candle wax everywhere. That's still on fire. For this project, I did end up tracking pretty much everything I spent money on, including the amount, the price, and the SKU number and where I got it from. So I'll try to put that information in the description in case you were interested in anything. This project I did specifically do a lot of shopping for specific fabrics or specific items. For example, the foundation I used, I needed specifically, and ended up buying a larger quantity just because that's how it's sold. Accidentally spent $30 on that. I did not realize it was that expensive until I checked out. And again, there, as always with my crafts, there was a lot of last minute panic shopping. Yeah, so if you have any questions about how much I spent or what I got, should be in the description. Otherwise, yeah, that was it. It was so much fun doing this. Doing a group cosplay for the first time. I really had a lot of fun at the meetup. I wish I could have gone to Katsucon too, but I have been burnt out from conventions. I have agreed to 4 or 5 in the first 4 months of 2025. So, taking whatever breaks I can. I definitely think this design I picked from her wasn't my favorite, so I'm not sure how often I'll actually pull out this costume again. I do really love how it came out, and I do really love that I made it, and I learned a lot from it. But there are definitely some other bug moth designs that she has that are so phenomenal. So keep an eye out, those might be on the channel at some point in the future. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, I'd love it if you'd like or subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.